The envelope was sitting in my mailbox between a power bill and a grocery flyer, an ordinary government envelope from the Kentucky Office of Vital Statistics. And I opened it standing right there at the end of my driveway, only half paying attention, because all it was supposed to be was a piece of paper I needed for a passport. I was 46 years old. I had booked my first trip overseas, a girls' trip to Italy I had been saving for, and the passport office wanted a long-form birth certificate, the full one, not the little wallet card I'd used my whole life. So I had sent off for it. And now here it was, and I stood at my mailbox in the Kentucky afternoon and read it, and the name typed in the box marked Mother was not my mother's name. It was my sister's. Let me back up, because that sentence does not mean anything until you know the family it detonated. My name is Robin. I am 46 years old, and I own a little hair salon in Paducah, Kentucky. 3 chairs, a coffee pot, 40 years of the town's secrets walking in and out my door, which is its own joke given what I am about to tell you. I have cut this town's hair and heard this town's confessions my whole adult life, and I prided myself on being a woman who could read people, who knew things. And I did not know the single largest fact about my own self until a piece of paper told me at the mailbox. You spend 30 years behind a styling chair, and you become a kind of priest, is the truth of it. People tell you things with their eyes closed and your fingers in their hair that they have never told their own husbands. I have learned who is leaving whom in this town before the lawyers have. I have learned which marriages are pretend, and which sick people are a great deal sicker than they are letting on. I thought I had a gift for the hidden thing, for the truth running under the surface that people keep, and I was a little proud of it, the way you are proud of the one thing you believe you are good at. So, you can imagine what it did to me, standing at that mailbox, to understand that the biggest hidden truth in the whole county had been running directly under my own feet for 46 years, and that the woman who could read everybody had read everybody except herself. I had been so busy seeing through other people's families that I never once looked hard at my own. It is the easiest blindness there is. You never aim the flashlight at the hand that is holding it. Here's the family I thought I had. My mama was named May. She had me late. That was always the story, the family's favorite story, told with a laugh at every Thanksgiving. May's surprise baby, her change-of-life baby, born when May was 44 and thought she was long done. My daddy had passed when I was small, and so it was mostly May and me, but I was never short of mothering because I had Linda. Linda was my big sister, 16 years older than me, grown and out of the house by the time I was really forming memories, and Linda was, everyone always said, like a second mother to me. She doted on me. She drove 4 hours for every birthday. She was the one who taught me to do hair, who set me up with my first styling chair, who showed up. My sister Linda. I loved her like a second mom, and everyone smiled about how close we were, the big sister and the little surprise. And I never once, in 46 years, thought there was anything underneath that smile. I should tell you what those 2 women were like, because it matters to how the truth landed. May, the woman I called Mama, was stern and capable and not given to softness. She ran the house like a ship. She did not hug much. She loved me through work, through clean clothes and packed lunches and a roof over my head, the way her generation loved. And Linda was the opposite, all warmth, the one who showed up with her arms already open. As a girl, I sometimes wondered, in the disloyal way children do, why my mama was so much harder than my sister, why Linda seemed to delight in me in a way May never quite did. I felt a little guilty about it, that I lit up more for my sister than for my own mother. I understand it now, of course. May was carrying the weight of the lie every single day, the daily discipline of being a mother she was not supposed to fully be, holding the line so the story would hold. And Linda got to just love me, with no line to hold, because the love was the only part of the truth she was allowed to keep. Of course Linda was the soft one. She was the only one of the 2 with nothing to guard but her own broken heart. May died this past winter. That is part of why the timing of all this has been so cruel. My mama, the woman I called Mama, died in February, and I grieved her hard, and a few months later, still raw, I ordered that birth certificate for a trip I had half a mind to cancel anyway, and the state of Kentucky reached out from a filing cabinet and told me that the woman I had just buried as my mother had not been my mother at all. The box marked "Mother," said Linda, "my sister Linda," and the box marked "Father" was blank. I read it maybe 10 times. I actually turned the paper over, the way you do, as if the back would explain the front. I checked the date of birth, mine. I checked the name of the child, mine, my full name, Robin Lynn. The Lynn I had always been told was just a pretty middle name. I checked the county and the year, and it was all correct. All mine. Every line of it true except the one line I had built my entire self on top of. The state of Kentucky was not confused. There had been no clerical error, no mix-up at the hospital, none of the comforting explanations my mind threw up in the first 60 seconds like sandbags against a flood. The document was perfectly, calmly accurate. It was my life that had the error in it. I stood there, holding the most ordinary kind of paper, the kind that comes in a window envelope, and I felt the ground I had stood on for 46 years quietly turn to water under my feet. I want to tell you I figured it out slowly, with grace, but the truth is, I figured it out standing at the mailbox in about 30 seconds, because once you see it, it is so obvious that the only miracle is that you never saw it before. A 16-year gap. A surprise baby born to a 44-year-old woman in a small Kentucky town in the 1970s. A teenage daughter, Linda, who would have been 16 the year I was born. A big sister who doted, who drove 4 hours, who showed up for everything, who taught me to do hair, who could not seem to stay away. I did not need a DNA test. I had been handed the answer my whole life in 1,000 small pieces, and I had simply never been allowed, or never allowed myself, to assemble them. The pieces came back all at once, a whole life of them. The way May and Linda would go quiet together in the kitchen and stop when I came in, which I had always read as ordinary grown-up talk. The fact that there were almost no baby pictures of me with May from the first year, and a surprising number with Linda. The strange intensity of Linda at every single milestone of mine, my graduation, my wedding, the opening of my salon. Linda always somehow more wrecked with feeling than the occasion seemed to call for from a sister, crying in a way I had found sweet and a little much. The time, when I was about 30, that Linda had had 2 glasses of wine at Christmas and looked at me across the room and said, "You have no idea, do you?" And then waved it off, said she was just being sentimental, and May had given her a look like a slammed door, and I had thought nothing of it. Nothing. For 16 years after that, I thought nothing of it. The truth had been standing right there in the room with us that Christmas, and a single look from my grandmother had sent it back into the dark. Linda had gotten pregnant at 15. May had raised the baby as her own, and the baby was me. My mother was my mother. The woman I had called my sister had carried me and borne me at 16, and then handed me to her own mama to raise, and spent the next 46 years loving me from the one seat she was allowed to sit in, which was the seat marked Sister. I sat down on my own front steps, and I cried for a long time, and I could not even have told you, in that first hour, exactly what I was crying about, because it was everything at once. I was crying for the lie. I was crying for May, who I could no longer ask a single question, who had taken the whole architecture of it to her grave that February. And underneath all of it, rising slowly, I was crying for Linda, because every doting thing my sister had ever done was rearranging itself in my mind, in real time, into the thing it had actually been, which was a mother loving her child across a line she was never permitted to cross. I drove to Linda's the next morning. I did not call. She lives an hour out of town, and I drove that hour with the birth certificate on the passenger seat, and I do not remember the drive at all. She opened the door and saw my face, and then she saw the envelope in my hand, and I watched 46 years go across her face in about 2 seconds, and she did not even try to pretend. She just said, "Oh, Robin," and her knees went, a little, and I caught her, and we ended up sitting on her kitchen floor, the two of us, a 46-year-old woman and her 62-year-old mother, finally on the same side of the truth for the first time in either of our lives. We did not say much, at first, on that floor. She held on to me, and she shook, and she kept saying, I'm sorry, I wanted to tell you so many times." And I held on to her, and I found that I was not angry, which surprised me as much as anything had. I had driven that whole hour braced to be angry, rehearsing the hard things I had a right to say. And then I was on the floor with her, and the anger simply was not there. What was there instead was the strangest sense of a thing clicking into a slot it had been hovering near my entire life, as if some deep part of me had always known which of these two women was my mother, had leaned toward her without permission for 46 years, and was now just, finally, being told it had been right all along. I was not learning something on that floor. I was being given permission to know something I had somehow always known. She told me everything that morning, things I am not going to lay out in full because they are hers, and she protected them for half a century, and I am not going to start handing them around now. But I will tell you the shape of it. She was 15 when she got pregnant. It was 1977, in a small, church-going Kentucky town, and you have to understand what that meant then. What it actually meant for a 15-year-old girl in that place and that year. The shame of it would have followed her for life, marked her, narrowed every door that might ever open for her. So May did what a certain kind of mother did in those days. She took it on herself. She told the town she was pregnant, late and surprising as it was. She went away for a while. She came back with a baby. And Linda got to stay a teenager with a future instead of becoming the girl that happened to. The lie was not built to hurt me. The lie was built to save my mother, my young, frightened 15-year-old mother, and I was raised inside the safest, most loved version of a hard situation that those two women could build with the tools their time gave them. She told me about being sent away to a cousin's for the last months, about coming home with empty arms to a town that had been told her mother was the one expecting, about going back to the 10th grade while her own baby slept down the hall, called by her mother's name. She told me about the rule, the unspoken family rule that ran the rest of her life, that she could love me as much as she wanted, give me anything, drive any distance, be at every birthday, as long as she never, ever crossed the line into the word. She had spent 46 years pouring a mother's whole heart through the one small opening she was allowed, the sister-shaped opening, and never once letting the truth spill out the sides, because letting it spill would have unmade the very shelter May had built around me. The discipline of that, the daily 50-year discipline of loving your own child while answering to sister, I do not think I have the strength for what those two women did. I really do not. I look at my own soft, easy life, and I do not believe I could have held that line for 50 years. They did. And here is the thing that has taken me the longest to hold, the thing I most want to say. They were not cruel. I have gone looking in these months for the villain of this story, the way you do, because a villain would be so much simpler to feel than what I actually feel. And there isn't one. There is a grandmother who loved a baby so much she became its mother to spare her own daughter a lifetime of shame. There is a teenage girl who gave up the right to be called Mama so that her child could have a stable, unmarked, ordinary life. There is a whole frightened family in a frightened time, making the most loving choice they could see at enormous private cost, and then keeping the secret faithfully for 50 years, not to deceive me, but to protect the structure that was holding me up. The lie was real. I am not going to pretend a lie is not a lie, but it was, I have come to believe, the truest shape that love was allowed to take, in that town, in that year, for those women. And I was its beneficiary, not its victim, even though it cost me the truth. That does not mean it cost me nothing. I want to be honest about the hard side too, because there is one. I grieve the years. I grieve that I called Linda my sister for 46 years, when some deep part of me, I think, always leaned toward her like a daughter leans toward a mother, and never knew why. I grieve that I never got to know her as my mother while I was young, never got to be openly hers. And I grieve, most of all, that I cannot ask May a single thing, cannot thank her, cannot rage at her, cannot ask her what it was like to raise her own grandchild as her daughter and never once let it slip, cannot tell her that I understand now, that I am not angry, that I see what she did and the size of it. February took all of that off the table forever, by a matter of months. The truth arrived just exactly too late for one of my mothers, and just barely in time for the other. So I have spent these months with the one I can still reach. Linda and I are building the thing we were never allowed to have. It is strange, and it is late, and it is unbelievably sweet. She is teaching me the things mothers teach daughters that I got a delayed, sideways version of my whole life. I have started, carefully, on the good days, to call her Mom. And the first time I did it, this 62-year-old woman who had waited 46 years to hear it from me put her face in her hands and wept like the 15-year-old she had been when she gave me up to her own mother's arms. We are figuring out the practical, awkward parts too, the parts no one warns you about. What do I tell my own kids? That the aunt they have always had is actually their grandmother? How do I hold both women now, in my heart and at the holidays that are coming, the grandmother who raised me and the mother who made me, when one of them is gone and the other is right here, and finally allowed to be what she always was? There is no map for it. We are drawing it as we go. Some days it is clumsy, and we both cry and do not know what to call anything. But I would rather have the clumsy true version than go back one single day to the smooth false one. Because the smooth one, I understand now, was costing my mother her whole heart, quietly, every day, for my entire life, and she paid it without complaint. And the very least I can do with the time we have left is let her finally stop paying it. She had carried the word Mom inside her, unsaid, for my entire life. She had earned it 1,000 times over from a seat that would not let her claim it. And now she gets to hear it, and I get to say it. And it is, I have decided, the thing I will be most grateful for at the end of my life. That the envelope came a few months too late to thank one mother, but just in time to give the other one her name back. If you have ever discovered that the story of your own family was not the one you were told, if a piece of paper, or a stray comment, or an old photograph ever quietly rearranged who you thought you were, then this story is for you. One word in the comments, if it found you. Hers. Just that. It is for everyone who was loved, all along, by someone who was never allowed to say out loud exactly who they were to you, and for the quiet hope that it is not always too late to give them back the word. Subscribe for new stories, real patterns, full narratives, the long game. 2 small pieces of wisdom from this one before I go. The first, when you find out your family kept an enormous secret from you, your first feeling will almost certainly be betrayal, and that feeling is fair, and you are allowed to have it. But before you let it harden into a verdict, do one thing. Find out what the secret was protecting, and who, and from what. Not every lie is told to deceive you. Some lies are told to shelter someone in a storm you cannot see from where you are standing now, decades later, in a kinder time. The secret that was kept from me was not a knife pointed at me. It was an umbrella held over a frightened 15-year-old girl, and I happened to be standing under it. Judge the lie by what it was trying to do, and to whom, and in what world, not only by the fact that it was a lie. The second, if there is someone in your life who has loved you faithfully from a seat that does not quite have a name, a step-parent, an aunt who is more than an aunt, a family friend, a sister who was somehow more, do not wait, as I nearly did, for a piece of paper to tell you what your heart has probably always half known. Tell them what they are to you. Use the word. Whatever the truest word is, the one the official story never allowed, say it to them out loud while they can still hear it. I almost lost the chance to give my mother her name. Do not gamble that you will get the few extra months I got. The people who love you from the unnamed seats have been waiting, often for a very long time, to simply be called the thing they have always been. A lie can be the truest shape love is allowed to take in a frightened time. So before you condemn the people who kept one, find out what they were trying to protect you from. I'll see you next time.